Thank you for being here.
Of course.
Tell us what DoorDash is.
DoorDash is an on-demand delivery startup, currently serving restaurants that previously did not deliver. We are in 16 major metro areas in the U.S., which covers about 200 cities. And one day you'll see us delivering food, things outside of food, delivering things between customers, between businesses, and building a delivery network in every city.
Is there any considerations for intergalactic or space? I mean, is this, first space? Are you in the SpaceX Mars program or anything like that? Are these?
We do have teleportation on the 2018 roadmap.
Okay.
But maybe space can go beyond.
You could maybe spin that out if that works out.
Yeah. Once SpaceX and Tesla have their automated delivery vehicles that go into space, I'm sure there's a fantastic opportunity there.
Tell us about some of the statistics or some of the cool kind of progress you've made or things you're proud of in terms of just the growth that you've seen over the last couple of years.
Well, we've been pretty fortunate. So we launched June 21st, 2013. So actually I met one of your friends, who was in the YC batch, Y Combinator batch just this summer. We launched out of Y Combinator 2 years ago.
Wow.
And so it's been a pretty fun filled ride. So I mentioned that we're now nationwide, 16 major metro areas. We've served 1 in 3 households here in the Bay Area, and so we certainly have moved pretty quickly. At the same time, it always feels like the to-do list is just longer.
I mean, that's so incredible because, especially for those that don't live here and those that are listening to this, there's a lot of competition here right now. Google's, got their own program, which basically they just give away for free. I mean, it's like the easiest thing in the world to sign up for. It's totally free. You've got all these, you've got all these other companies that have their own kind of takes in the space, and yet you've still served a third of everyone here. How did you get such deep penetration in just under 2 years? How did you do that?
I mean, I think the most important thing was just focusing on the experience, right? I mean, for us, actually, a key decision early on was just understanding what the product is, right? In many ways, the product is delivery, which is not novel, right? Delivery has been around probably since humans have been around, right? Somebody must have brought the chairs to this event or that camera that's looking at us, right? And so it was really understanding what the product was, and the product is very complicated. Right, I mean, we literally have a system of over 20 products that have to work in coordination just to get one delivery correct. So not really listening to, what the press says about the space or even looking at what some of our peers are doing, just focusing on our customers, our dashers, so our delivery partners, as well as our merchants. I think that has had a lot to do with our success so far.
And there's something in the news about this space every single day. There's some new announcement, there's some new partnership, there's something. It seems like it would be more difficult than ever to focus right now. How do you keep that focus with all the noise that's happening?
Well, I think it's, especially as you guys are, founding your companies, right? It's always very easy to see where all the cracks are in your own product and in your own business. So there's no shortage of that, and I think that's actually what I focus on, right? I mean, I don't, wake up to whatever the latest news is. Instead, I wake up to what are the core metrics for DoorDash, and how are we doing against our roadmap?
Whose product has cracks in it? Raise your hand if your product has any issues in it. Oh, okay. There's a lot of dishonest people in this room. That's not the startup grind way. You should be totally honest. Okay, so with that in mind, with that idea of you are the CEO, and you I saw this chart recently that the perception of a founder's company, it should be smaller than the outside perception. If the company's, the CEO's perspective or the founder's perspective is bigger than what is outside, then you have this really upside down, kind of situation. How do you as an entrepreneur? It would seem like everything goes perfect for you. I mean, from the outside, if I read the resume, if I read the Crunchbase profile, it would seem like, man, DoorDash is just killing it. Everything's just couldn't be better. I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure that you guys have your issues. Like you said, you have cracks in your own product. How do you overcome the really, really difficult times? How do you get past the terrible setbacks and the bad things that happen to you?
So, the first thing is don't believe everything you read, right? So it's never as rosy as I think, or as bad, frankly, as I think any outsider wants to observe. And you guys certainly are by far the biggest experts in your own business. So don't let anyone else ever, tell you otherwise, despite what the skeptics may say. I think what's really important is to think as much as you can from first principles. Right, and that's actually one of the 5 core values at DoorDash, which is it's nice to know what the industry best practices or what people in the past have done or what even some of your current peers are doing. It's a lot better, however, if you actually understood what the problem is, if you thought about it for yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what your customer, whoever that may be, is most interested in. And I think if you can just solve your customers' problems, the rest of the world can write whatever they want, but I think you'll be fine.
What are DoorDash's values? Tell us about those.
One of the most important values we have is that there's no job beneath us, right? I mean, the founders, we actually were the delivery folks for the first 9 months of the business. So we were out there along with our fleet of awesome Dashers every day, Monday through Sunday, no breaks, right? We really understood the business, right? Our background was not, in logistics, but very, very quickly we became experts in delivering just about anything, whether it's, hot pizza or cold ice cream. That's really, really important to us. I think really understanding from our customers' point of view that we have 3 kinds of customers, understanding what they go through is really, really important. I mentioned the idea of first principles, right? Whenever we build product, the first thing we try to do is actually understand what the question to ask is, right? How do we do that if we want to serve, say, our merchants? Well, maybe we should become a salad chef for a day and really understand what they go through before we try to, impose, what we think might be best. We really, really believe in hiring people who are high on talent. We bet on talent usually over experience. And as a result, we put usually people in very uncomfortable situations. So we ask them to ask for forgiveness and not for permission. In many ways, whether it's your startup, whether it's, a new problem, a new product that you want to build, until you actually do something, to actually collect real information, all the analysis isn't really worth that much. And I think once you, go through that once, you'll figure out pretty quickly that the rest doesn't matter.
Let's talk about talent for a minute. How you guys have grown from your founders, you and your co-founders, to 150 people in basically 2 years. So it's like you're sitting out there and it's like, man, I have a hard time hiring one person, let alone 150. How do you evaluate talent? What does that mean to you when you're sitting down and meeting with these people? I mean, you're having to make decisions so quickly to keep up with the demand that you have inside the company. What do you look for? What does that mean, talent?
Well, I think it really depends if you're hiring for an individual contributor or for, say, someone more senior with maybe more experience. I think if you're looking for an individual contributor, we're really looking for how high we think that person's ceiling is, right? We don't think that talent or IQ is proportionate to all. We don't think everyone is above average. We really look for also the ability, or I guess the ability to suspend judgment and to fail and to try new things. I think that's actually extraordinarily difficult, especially when there's so many high talent people here in Silicon Valley that they probably didn't fail to get into the seats that you guys are in today. We look for people who also are great communicators. I think that's one of the biggest things we've come to learn, where it's not really about public speaking, it's much more about how good are they at communicating the tactics daily and to different audiences. And then I think if you're looking for managers or more senior folks, I think what you might want to evaluate on instead, we're fairly new to this, so we're learning it on the fly, is what have they done in the past, right? Whereas an individual contributor, you're looking for how high that ceiling is. For a manager, you're looking for what they've done in the past.
Would love to hear about how DoorDash got started. Where did the idea come from? How did you meet your co-founders?
So ironically, the idea had nothing to do with food or with delivery. The motivation really was to help local merchants. So my mom has been, running a small business pretty much her entire life here in the United States, my entire life growing up here in the United States. And, she's run 3 different businesses, one of which was a restaurant. But the founding motivation really was to write software to help local merchants. It was only until we started speaking with a group of small retailers, so not even restaurants, who had challenges fulfilling delivery orders that we even, got the idea to explore delivery. And so, my co-founders and I, we actually met at Stanford. We decided to explore this by delivering ourselves, test deliveries for different stores nearby. We actually set up effectively Stanford's delivery service because no one on campus had delivered, just to see if people wanted this. Because I'm a huge believer in efficient markets, and if 85% of the restaurants in this country don't deliver, or 99% of merchants in this country don't deliver, maybe there's a good reason why they don't deliver. And so the very first thing that we wanted to understand was whether or not delivery was something that people wanted.
It was a real problem.
Yeah.
And were you guys did you 3 get together and say, hey, we want to start a company, let's figure something out? Were you just kind of brainstorming? Were you how fluid was that, or how forced was getting into something together?
I mean, it was incredibly fluid. It was a project. It was not a company, right? And we really wanted to answer 3 questions when we were pretty much embarking on this project. I mean, 1, did people want it? 2, could we actually partner with a delivery team to actually fulfill the orders? And 3, would merchants actually want to work with us to get their orders effectively offer a new line of business, delivery, right? Those are the 3 questions, and that was that's actually what we entered Y Combinator with, right? We were probably one of the few teams that actually did not have a product until we entered and then launched in the 2nd week of Y Combinator.
So I heard this story that you were at a particular merchant's store, and you're kind of talking to them, brainstorming with them, and that as you were leaving, she kind of said, you kind of had this frustrating back and forth trying to figure out how you could help her. Is this story true? Am I getting this right, or can you tell this?
There are a few of these stories. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us either this one or one of the others of one of the early customers of the merchants that kind of really persuaded you that, hey, this is something I should start to believe in, or this is something I should spend more time on.
Well, there's a bakery store owner here in Palo Alto on University Avenue called Chantal Guillaume. That's the name of the store. And Chloe, who was the store manager at the time, she was shuffling through these clipboard orders that were delivery orders, and she had not fulfilled them. And I just asked a simple question, why don't you drive them yourself? It seems pretty straightforward. And she said, we didn't open this store 20 years ago because we love delivery. And that was the kind of aha moment to say, duh, no merchant starts their business because they love delivery, right? No florist opens a flower shop because they love delivery. No restaurateur opens a restaurant because they love delivery, and the list kind of goes on, right? And that was when we said, why is it that there are no delivery services here in the U.S.? And that's actually when we started.
And so when you get into YC, you said you launched the product 2 weeks in. Did you
Yes.
actually in the App Store, or did you just get something up on the website, or how did you launch? What
It was a web product
source
at first.
version?
Actually, the first version is not something we're super proud of. We worked on this test website. I mentioned that we were testing deliveries effectively at Stanford's delivery service. So we called this PaloAltoDelivery.com. This is not live anymore. It's not pretty. It's stored locally on our machines, but it literally was a site that had PDF menus and a Google Voice number that rang the cell phone of all the founders. That was it. I mean, because all we wanted to test again was, why do people actually want delivery? Is it do merchants not deliver because people don't want delivery? And so that was actually, the original MVP, if you will.
And are you getting calls all night or all through the day? Or even before that, how did you get the first 10 calls, the first 20 calls? Like, where did you post it on Craigslist? Did you put up flyers in Stanford? Did you mass email everyone? I mean, what did you do?
We got our first call actually 45 minutes after launching it. So Google, we're pretty sure, didn't even index our site at that point yet. So the customer, who we remember well, must have just typed into the browser, paloaltodelivery.com. But no, I mean, it didn't just start ringing off the hook. It didn't just start ringing off the hook. I mean, yes, we emailed, some of our friends on campus. They might email their friends, and it like I said, I mean, the first couple of months effectively was a test run on Stanford's campus.
So you had the first one in 45 minutes. That's like a pretty good sign. Did you have any others the rest of the day, or was that no? Okay.
No.
The rest of the week?
It was fairly bleak.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't immediately clear that this was going to be a huge business.
No, I mean, in fact, I think when you're starting a company, right? I mean, you're always testing, probably more than one hypothesis. But for a business to survive, there's probably 2 or 3 big questions you have to answer. For us, the biggest question was, is this something that people actually wanted? And throughout that entire summer in Y Combinator, that was the most important question we were trying to answer.
So as they're coming to you, as you're coming in for the office hours each week, and they're saying, hey, did you get your 7% growth? You're like, we nailed it this week. We got 100%. We got our first. And then you started so low, that probably ended up being a good thing, right? You're one of the fastest.
Yeah, we set the bar really low. Set the bar really low, and then therefore
you over-delivered. So how did you get your first 10 or 20 customers from there?
In the very beginning, it really was largely organic, right? So where restaurants themselves would kind of tell the customers.
Are they marketing it for you?
Yeah, they were effectively marketing on our behalf, and then we didn't actually spend much marketing for the entire first 2 years, actually, and most of it was word of mouth in the very beginning. So the first 10 to 20 customers were probably friends of ours from Stanford who told their friends over the summer. But yeah, that was how it grew. It grew organically.
And like you said before, the merchants, they didn't want to deliver anyways. So if somebody called in and they were like, if delivery came up, or they're saying, hey, we got somebody that can bring it to your house if that makes it easier for you. I mean, it sounds like they were.
Yeah, they were definitely a part of it. They definitely were a part of it. But I would say that early on, most of the growth was organic, and where maybe it was just 3 customers who would order, then they would tell some other folks, and the cycle kind of continued.
And they would use it again.
Yes, that was absolutely.
And what percentage of people then, or maybe it's the same now, but what percentage of people that use it once? Do you have metrics that you could share with that use it again, or how often do they use it, or how many times do they use it if they sign up for it once?
So we definitely haven't shared that, but we're told we don't.
No one's doing hashtag start grind or anything.
Yeah, no, we're told by folks on the outside who may see a lot of different companies that we have the highest retention rates in the industry, and so I mean if you think about it, it's not that difficult to. I mean, we didn't think about it when we were in the moment. We were just trying to deliver the food ourselves. It's a very high frequency purchase, right? Outside of oxygen and water and electricity, right? Food is pretty high on the totem pole when it comes to purchases that you probably will make, and so it was a very high frequency purchase.
Yeah, the total addressable market's pretty big.
Yes, we didn't really do a calculation. I don't think we needed one to justify that eating was a large market.
Right. You've never had an investor ask you how big the eating market is, or somebody's had to have asked you that. Not at Sequoia, they wouldn't do that.
One that we've worked with.
Okay. So as you started to meet with investors, was it were they falling over you? Had it become clear at the end of YC that this was going to be this huge thing? I mean, or was it still kind of unclear that, what was the perception after a couple of months, and what was the traction?
Well, it was still pretty unproven, right? I mean, we were largely, no, not largely, we were entirely an unknown team, right? We, had gone through Y Combinator, but then again, we just launched in week 2 of Y Combinator, so we only had 9 to 10 weeks of data, right? So that's literally what our angel investors were going off of. So there wasn't a lot of, traction necessarily to speak of. I think it was much more how we thought about the business, the different questions that we had tried to ask ourselves to effectively de-risk, each part of the business that ultimately, led us to a successful angel investment. But it was difficult.
So you essentially got a mathematics degree at Berkeley, and then you went to Stanford Business School, right? And your co-founders are Stanford CS guys. A lot of people, I'm sure in this room and definitely listening, who are looking for a co-founder, who are trying to find that match, who probably a lot of people that would consider themselves a business person that are trying to find technical people to work with them. You're definitely a very technical person, but how did you convince those guys that you were the right person to work for them to work with, and vice versa? How did they convince you to work with them? Like, what happened inside that relationship that you said, these are the guys I want to go the distance with, and then actually made that happen?
So I think barring a long-term relationship, right, that you may have with your co-founder prior to starting something together, the only way that you can, I think, work through issues is to actually work on something tangible, right? So we actually worked on 3 or 4 projects, before DoorDash. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the original motivation was just to help, small businesses. And so, I think we definitely shared that common view. But I think the other thing that I would ask yourself is to, what do you think you uniquely can be good at, irrespective of your actual skills, right? I think, you really have to build your team such that you have the best team for the type of problem that you're actually addressing, right? DoorDash actually is really a marriage between a human problem and a math problem, right? So you have to be really good at the math and understand how to write software to coordinate very complicated logistics, but you also have a lot of people you're dealing with, right? Real merchants, real drivers and cyclists and the like. And so I think understanding what the needs are for the business very, very early on, and then seeing if you have that on your founding team, is the way that I would go and have that conversation with your co-founders.
And what makes you uniquely positioned to solve this problem, you personally?
So, unlike a lot of Silicon Valley companies, DoorDash's success is characterized by a pretty small margin for error, right? If you think about it, if you're if you're a Facebook maybe or a Google, you have such strong economics from your ads business that you can effectively use to invest in any kind of business you want. I think we've seen that throughout the past 5 to 10 years. At DoorDash, every delivery counts, and the clock effectively resets to 0 every single day. And at the same time, you don't have a lot of room for mistakes, right? Not just in the economics, but also in terms of the actual service itself, right? You have 40 minutes. That's our average delivery time, from when someone places her order to when she receives it, right? And you have to get 20 things right, and you have to also prepare for when those 20 things go wrong. So I think...
what types tell us what can go wrong?
Many things can go wrong, right? The food's not ready. The food that you ordered perhaps has run out, from the store today. The Dasher, our drivers, are stuck in traffic. You don't have enough drivers out on the road, or you don't have enough, of the right, vehicle types on the road. How do you? I mean, those are a few of the issues. I mean, there's certainly, trust me when I say that there are well more than 15 to 20 on just a single delivery. And you really, I mean, that's why it ultimately becomes a software problem, right? Because no human or collection of humans can actually process all of these complications in that short period of time across many millions of orders, right? And so, I think for us, it's really not about me individually. What am I uniquely good at? It's what our team's uniquely good at, right? I mean, we have the best data science team in the world, right? From PhDs from Stanford, other MIT, the University of Washington, and at the same time, that part is really the part that allows us to invent many of the solutions that don't exist for this type of problem. And then on the flip side, we have a team of, I would just say, ops ninjas, if you will, or whatever word of the flavor of the weak word you want to use is, for just extraordinarily strong business generalists who will do what it takes, to get something solved on the ground. Right. Again, the marriage between the math and the human components, whether it's Navy SEALs on our team, former Olympians, a lot of former founders, etc.
You've probably had some of the Dashers do some pretty wacky things to get their deliveries made, right? I mean, do you have is there any stick out in particular of just like somebody going above and beyond to get something delivered, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the we had noticed an unusual number of deliveries to the Stanford hospital one evening in January. And, I got pretty alarmed. We were looking at, the map and trying to understand what was going on. And actually, they were all going to the maternity ward. And so actually a few parents who had used us had recommended this to some of their friends who were expecting their first or second child, and as a result one of our Dashers who was delivering to the hospital actually before delivering had gone way above the call of duty and bought balloons, wrote a handwritten note, bought a lot of chocolates, and now this last part, I'm not sure if it actually held true. We were told by the customer that she had decided to name her child the name of the Dasher. Now, like I said, we never went back to verify that part of the story, but the first part of the deliveries with all the extra gifts.
What was it named? What was his name? Do you remember? It must have been a great name.
We don't disclose the name.
Okay, yeah, okay. It's privacy issues. Wow, that's really. She must have really not had any names on her mind, because some people, they go and they.
I think she did. I think she was just shocked and awed.
Was that good?
By the response.
Wow.
I definitely do not believe that she was expecting all of the other gifts to come with her delivery.
Wow, that's actually a great use case. And I have my wife. I take no credit for delivering the children, but we've delivered 3 children at Stanford, and I don't know why we've never used DoorDash. DoorDash just was invented, so that's why. And our children, you were not in existence when our children were there. So that is note to set. My wife is here, so let's use DoorDash next time for Stanford, because the food is horrible. So what is the future of what does this look like? Like, what do you guys look like in 5 years and 10 years? Like, where does this go? Where does the market go? Tell us how you see the future of this playing out.
So, I mean, I started by saying that deliveries are not novel, right? I mean, they've been around for hundreds of years, and our vision for DoorDash is really to become a delivery network in every city. And to do that, to effectively become a utility service in every city, we have a long ways to go, right? We always tell, our teams internally that the progress bar is, barely visible, right? Because we're just getting started. Today we're, business to consumer in one vertical. Tomorrow you might see us deliver items in other categories, but even then it's still just the beginning. I mean, to be a true utility, we need to allow all of our audiences, our merchants, our Dashers, our consumers to be able to connect in any way possible. I mean, and so 5 years, 10 years, we hope we'll be delivering to just about any audience. Right, and just about any type of product that they want, whether it's right now or whether it's a little bit later on.
Is it a winner-take-all situation? Is this where we're going to see a FedEx and a UPS or a couple of big players kind of own this whole thing, or do you think is it fragmented? I mean, what is it?
Well, it's a pretty large market. Even in food alone, again, we've established this, that eating is a large market.
Well, you didn't give me a number, so I don't know for sure, but I'm just going to take your
plenty of
your
reports
word for
out
it.
there.
You've got data.
Plenty of reports out there, but it's very, very difficult to predict whether or not there can be. If you just look at the logistics space, I guess the overnight or the cross-country delivery, space in the United States or actually even internationally, there are 4 or 5 very, very large services around the globe that fulfill those deliveries every single day. Would that look similarly in the last mile? Actually, the last mile opportunity is even larger. There was a statistic by the folks at Morgan Stanley that said something like 85% of what someone buys is within a 15-mile radius of where they live. So if you think about the trillions of dollars of commerce that happen, that's just to consumers. That seems to be a pretty large opportunity for a lot of folks.
We're going to take some questions from the audience here in just a second. Our hashtag is StartupGrind. What do you lose sleep about? What do you wake up in the middle of the night screaming about, nightmares? What scares you about what you're doing right now?
The biggest challenge is always scaling quality as you grow very, very quickly. And so the quality of the product, making sure that, again, you mentioned hiring earlier, we have an extraordinarily high hiring bar, making sure that the hiring bar increases, right? Not just maintains, but increases. Again, obviously at tension with the want to grow as fast as you can. And that's a big one. Second, are we building the right things, right? That's always something, again, a business generally can be reduced to 2 or 3 questions. I would highly encourage everyone in this room as you're starting your companies, building your companies, to be thinking about those, all the time, because it probably, to really truly understand each one of these questions, it probably takes, probably 5 to 10 years to truly understand, every facet of it. You could probably answer it for yourself very quickly, a small sliver, but usually the complexities are really what matter.
What is you talk about continuing to move the bar up. I'm curious, what is the bar above a PhD at Stanford? What goes above that? How do you go up from there?
Well, I think even if you ask some of our machine learning leads, they would even tell you that. So for instance, this problem that we're trying to address, right, has been theorized by many leading operations research scientists across the world, but never solved, right? And they've been studying it for 40 plus years. So I think having that sense of humility that brilliant professors, at Stanford, Berkeley, other great schools, haven't yet solved it, I think gives us a lot of humility in knowing that there's, probably a lot of folks out there. It kind of goes along the saying that the more you think about things, the less you know, and I think that certainly is true when it comes to the problem we're solving.
All of the Dashers have these bright red shirts. They're super easy to spot. Like you see. I mean, I can see them down the street. Half a mile away, I can see a Dash. He's got his hands full of food and everything. Was that a conscious effort to brand, and when did that happen? Were you guys wearing branded shirts, in the early days, the Palo delivery shirts? Do those exist? That would be actually a cool shirt.
Those did not exist. Just the hideous website.
Okay.
No, we actually had the shirts pretty much from the beginning.
Okay.
We actually thought of them actually as a way to make it easier for our merchants to recognize who was coming, but at the same time we thought they were fun.
And has that played an impact? Does that impact? Does that part of it? You probably do other types of marketing now, but being conscious about branding and kind of being cohesive about that at an early stage. Some could make the case that for a startup they have so many other problems, like they shouldn't even worry about something like that. But did it have a material impact on what you're doing?
So we have we've for the first 2 years, we had a marketing team of 0 to 1, right? Like that was the amount of people we had working on it. So I don't think we actually spent that much time on it. At the same time, I do believe, branding is one of the maybe two most undervalued investments in Silicon Valley, generally because we pride ourselves on the technology and the software and don't really think necessarily more about the human components. We definitely think it is a very valuable component of the DoorDash experience. At the same time, we think there's a lot more of actual investment we need to make in that area.
What is the other one?
Management. I think in Silicon Valley, the kind of thought process has always been: you build a great product, it kind of will sell itself, and the software kind of takes care of everything. And while I do believe in the quote unquote software eating the world thesis, at the end of the day, people have to make things happen, right? People write the software. People do different parts of the company building process, and I think running the business and now scaling the business largely is an exercise around how do we think about management, especially a business like ours where we have a very decentralized organization. It's extraordinarily difficult. I mean, I'm sure you probably see it with having, you said 200 plus cities, so imagine coordinating 200 plus teams, right, in different languages, across different cultures, time zones, etc. That certainly is a huge challenge.
I think too, you mentioned this at the beginning about communication and how critical it is. As soon as you get outside of your own single office, right, and you start, even somebody that's in a different state or a different time zone, you lose so much. Each layer you get, each time zone, each culture, you lose a little bit more in the ability to communicate. And if you don't have excellent communicators at every step of that process in every location, the whole thing can break down very quickly. And so is a super undervalued skill with the way things, the global nature of businesses today.
We can always get better.
Let's give it up for Tony. Thank you very much for being here.